So Grant Cardone spoke about the 4 levels of action on his book, The 10X Rule. So if you don't know Grant Cardone, he's probably top 10, don't quote me, richest men on the planet. You know, I really love Uncle G. And the interesting thing about Grant's story, if you didn't know, and I encourage you to listen to his audiobooks, is he was a drug addict, alcoholic at 25 in a rehab center. 25 years old. His life was a complete mess. And a few years after, not only he's flying private jets, which is really irrelevant, is more the fact that he has the money for it. And he owns more than $1 billion worth of real estate. And he wrote his best-selling book. I mean, he's wrote several books. Sell or Be Sold. Anybody that wants to learn sales. He also wrote the book Be Obsessed or Be Average. It's my personal favorite book of his. But his best-selling book is called The 10X Rule. And it is just a multiplier. It talks about how if you want to make sure you guarantee a result, you just have to input 10 times the effort that you initially calculate. So let's say I want to lose, 10 pounds. I want to make a game plan as if I was going to lose 100. And I will for sure lose 10. Not sure if 100. So hopefully that math makes sense. Welcome back to Unlocked. Thanks for listening. We're going to talk about the 4 levels of action, the 4 degrees of action that Grant mentions in his book that I think can go a long way and help you understand, what kind of results you're getting and if you like the results you're getting or how to increase them. So 4 levels of action. Okay, we're going to start with the first one. And different degrees. The first degree of action by Grant it's pretty obvious, is no action at all. So it's very self-explanatory. If I stay on my couch like a couch potato and I'm not doing anything, I'm watching TV, I'm just kind of being lethargic with life and not really taking any action. Let's say the goal was to go to the gym and get strong and lose weight. I'm probably not going to do that if I'm taking no action. That's very obvious, very clear, because it gives you're not even expecting results if you're not taking any action, okay? The second degree of action is retreat. And we've all been at a point where we retreat, but it's also not a winning mindset. I don't want to say you're a loser if you retreat, but it is totally not a winning level of action. So what does a retreater do? A retreater is a person that tries a lot of new things. So they try a lot of new jobs. They're trying a lot of new relationships. They try a lot of new sports. They try, but they never go the full way. They never finish the full meal. They never get to see the end, because anytime there's some degree of uncomfortability, anytime that you feel something is getting difficult or harder, which things that are worth it tend to, this person retreats and they start something new and they stop. It is very relatable to somebody that could have a fear of failure. And even people that do have fear of failure, which could be natural, even people that have that, they agree to the point that failure is necessary in order to succeed. You can't just pretend that things are going to go well, because failing by default would be not trying. So it is very important that you realize if you are in a retreating level of action, that of course, not only you're going to get no results, more importantly, you're going to waste a lot of time because you're going to keep trying new things, and as soon as things get hard. So you ever meet anybody that they can't stick it out, or they kind of go away from a problem? You ever meet somebody, maybe in a relationship, you ever talk to somebody that, like, maybe you're having a discussion, maybe you're having a little bit of an argument, and when they get to a point that they are not right, they leave, they exit the room physically, and they don't want to keep talking because they know that is a retreater. And it's not only terrible, it's very damaging to relationships, it's very damaging to your reputation. So it doesn't lead to anything. But of course, a lot of people out there, they don't realize that they're retreating, and they don't realize that encountering the pain of whatever new thing you're doing is necessary. The third level of action is normal action. This is the most dangerous level of action that there is. Why? Is because everyone is accepting of it. And this one is the most dangerous because it is where middle class is trapped in. It is what, low and middle class are trapped in and never will grow out of that, because they are empowered by society, which is, again, environment typically conditions most of our behavior. If you look at Western civilization, if you just zoom out in your brain and you think about a new culture, a new country, the West for us or whatever, people kind of behave similar ways, right? People behave in traffic similar ways. People behave in a city similar ways. There's a way that things are done. And that is why, because the environment is typically the biggest influence of behavior. And you've all heard the sentence like, hey, you become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself the most with. Or if you are surrounded by 5 drug dealers, you'll be the 6th. If you are surrounded by 5 bodybuilders, you'll be the 6th. If you're surrounded by 5 fat people, you'll be the 6th. We've all heard this. There's a lot of truth to the environment, not the math of 5 and 6, but the environment is one of the most influential and powerful tools. So if you raise your kid who has obviously an empty brain, has nothing to show the world yet of what he's learned, and you surround him with very well-mannered kids, chances are, probabilities are that the kid will have good manners. And the opposite would be true as well. So the most dangerous level of action is normal action, because everyone around you, your family, your friends, they'll all tell you you're doing great. They'll even tell you, hey, stop, you're working too much, it's crazy, don't hurt yourself. You'll hear these sentences. And they're normally said in a joking manner. For example, don't work too hard. Or make sure you get some rest. Make sure you get some work-life balance. You'll hear these things. These are some of the most dangerous things you can hear if you're a winner, you're a successful person. Why? Because it'll move your standard of winning in obsession. It'll move it down to like, it's okay. It's just okay to conform. And again, I want to repeat it one more time. Normal action is the worst and the most dangerous level of action, because the expectation of people is that you've already made it and that it's normal to leave. It's normal to work until 5. It's considered a lot to work 50 hours a week, when that's not even, 40% of the waking hours or of the total hours in a week. So normal level of action is the hardest to escape because of that. When you're in a retreat mode, people can tell you're a quitter. People can tell that you move when there's pain. So you'll get some criticism, and that means you'll get some pain, and usually pain leads you and helps you change. Human beings change when there's pain. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you probably won't put your hand there again. No action is pretty simple. Society will kick you out of that. You won't be in your parents' basement until you're 40, chances are. Retreat is also easy. Again, normal is the most dangerous, because everyone will conform around you and make you think that it's okay, you're doing good, you don't got to do too much, you don't want to burn the candle on both ends. You're not a candle. You're not a candle. The 4th level of action, and this is where the whole book's written on, is massive action. And this is the only level that will actually advance you into whatever goals you usually have. So if you think about a new career, if you think about maybe something that maybe you're in a relationship that's getting a little stagnant, maybe in the gym you're a little stagnant, maybe at work you're just a little stagnant, the only thing that will get you out of it is massive action. It's the most complicated level of action. Why? Because it's going to create critics. People are going to tell you you're overboard. You're going to be obsessed. And people tell you obsessions are bad. Obsessions are not bad. Obsessions are only bad if the topic you're obsessed with, if you're obsessed with drugs, that's bad. If you're obsessed with alcohol, that's bad. If you're obsessed with something toxic, that's bad. But obsessing on work, obsessing on progress, obsessing on some form of delayed gratification, obsessing on making my marriage great, obsessing on anything like that is absolutely positive. The thing is that it'll create a lot of critics. So now you're going to fight an uphill battle. Now you're going to have to swim upstream. Why? Because you're taking massive action, which means people are watching you, and now they're having to compare themselves with you, and they're like, hey, I don't like that guy. He's doing too much. He's gonna make me look bad because what I'm doing. And so people will try to put you down. So you'll notice you're taking massive action. If people around you go from seeming friends to maybe a little bit of gossip you get against you. Maybe your family starts to advise you that you shouldn't go that hard. That's how you know you're gonna be successful, is you are in a consistent point of frequent pain, unguaranteed results, but guaranteed critics and hate, is when you're taking massive levels of action. And I want you to do the math. It's the 10x rule, right? If I wanted to make $100 a day, let's say I have to knock on 50 doors for that. The way you would do that is you would multiply the level of action necessary for $100. Let's say that's 50 doors. You would multiply that times 10. and you would work, you would not stop working until you hit that. So you would hit 500 doors, 50 times 10, and then that would for sure guarantee you $100. Chances are you'll make more. The math says you would make $500. However, that isn't guaranteed because just like you, me, or anyone else, most people never really hit the goal. Most people get close to their goal, sometimes hit it, sometimes don't. If you look at anyone publicly that has ever said, hey, this is my goal, frequently they didn't hit it, and that is okay. But the real goal was beneath that. It was the level of action that was increased so that they could hit the goal. That's been extremely helpful for us. When I started working in my career in this business, I was probably working here 16 hours a day. I was probably here Saturdays at 7, 8, 9 p.m. I was coming here Sundays to print paperwork, to get myself ready for Monday. I was working 7 days a week. I was obsessed. I am obsessed. However, my results now, when I look back 4 or 5 years, I compare my career to any of my friends, peers, family, anybody that was around my circle, any of the critics back then. My career's taken off to a point that I could retire and I wouldn't miss the work. I wouldn't need to show up to a workplace because I've done all that work. That obsession has paid me back. But I remember being a normal level of action and how that creates just enough. You know, if you were dealing with somebody that takes normal amounts of action, if they live paycheck to paycheck, if their goals aren't big, if they don't have huge desire for crazy stuff, you know, the world, and I'll kind of wind it down with this. The world has a lot of awesome things. You know, God created great clothes and food and housing and better cars. They were made for you. A lot of people don't feel worthy of it, which is a different topic. But I believe you are worthy of it. Like, I believe if it's in this world, it belongs to this world, you can have it no matter what background you have. And the only one thing that separates you from that is taking massive amounts of action. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you increase the level of activity you put into your goals, and we'll see you at the next one.